Hello, everyone. My name is Gary Williams from the DrPH program. I am the program administrator, and I'm going to go through just a few slides and a quick overview of what the program is. We also have an alum, one of our alum here, Tariana Little, and our current student, Anton, I always messed up the second name. I'm so sorry, but Anton Usigli will be here as well as our current DrPH student to get their opinions and their views on the program as well. Now, with the DrPH program, it is a program for mid-career professionals. And we will be going through foundational concept in the program. They go through foundational concepts, theories, methods of public health. And we also the program is kind of founded on 4 different pillars. It's the development of leadership, management, communication, and innovative thinking. You will see those 4 throughout the program, and especially within the enabling change portion of the program, as that deals with a lot of the leadership and the communication side and working with teams in terms of enabling change. The curriculum itself, it's set up within 4 different buckets, if you will. There's the public health concepts and methods. Those are the regular curriculum courses that you would take here in the program. The enabling change courses, those are throughout the first year of your program, program here. Field immersion, there are 2 different field immersions that students will go through. And the third year is the doctoral project, which is akin to what a dissertation is for PhD, but for our program, it would be a thesis. Next slide, please, Charlie. Now with the field immersion, there are 2 different field immersions. The first one is in year 1, that is your winter field immersion, and that is for about it's about 3 weeks, and it has 2 to 4 students within each group. Now, this field immersion time is for the students really to collaborate together, because this is their first time really working on a project at a host organization of the program's choosing. The program will assign students to a host organization, but you will get to choose, you would actually get to see what the projects are for each host organization, and then you would get to choose and kind of rank which ones you would like to go to. This winter, students are working at either the Cambridge Health Alliance, or they will be working at UMass Memorial. There are some projects that are at both host organizations, so students will be divided into groups of, I think there's about 5, there should be about 5 and 5, or we are still working on one other host organization site so that we can do maybe 3, 3, and 4, because there are 10 students in the cohort. With summer field immersion, that is the beginning of year 2. That is 8 to 10 weeks, and that is a time where students get to pick their own host organization. This time you get to figure out what host you would like to work at, what projects you would like to work on, while having a learning agreement with the host organization. This is all to hopefully prepare you for the 3rd year in terms of the doctoral project. I always try to say maybe the summer field immersion could be a precursor to what you would do within your 3rd year. This is just a picture of Marissa Henn. Her last name is now Henn, who has graduated from our program, and this is what she did her project at Intermountain Healthcare in Utah. And next slide, please. The enabling change portion of the program, like I said at the very beginning, it deals with leadership, management, communication, and innovative thinking. And the thought behind this program, if you will, is public health leaders should use traditional public health research skills and methodologies, and it should be combined with learning how to enable change positively, not within just yourself, but with teams, within organizations, and across systems. How we go about that are by the courses that are listed here below. The personal mastery courses, that is something that students will be heavily involved in when you first come into the program in your summer of year 1. You will have a personal mastery course. And then in the fall 2 and all of spring of year 1, we have the students do personal mastery 2. This was brought about because a lot of the students who went through personal mastery in the summer really believe that we should have an extended section of personal mastery so that they can continue learning. That is how we've ended up expanding this course. Then you have your enabling teams course, where you will be learning to work within teams, because then with your winter immersion, you will be working in teams together. Enabling large scale change, integrating the field immersion experiences as cases and connecting concepts through the coursework. So everything that you are doing within field work gets tied to the curriculum and vice versa, because we tried to thread the needle through all of them. And next slide, please. And then we have the doctoral project. This is the culmination, if you will, of all of the work that you will be doing within the program. This is your entire year 3. Students will choose, again, a host organization of your choice. And you will be working, that should say 8 to 10 months, not 810 months, sorry about that. That should say 8 to 10 months within a host organization throughout the 3rd year. And that is really to work on your thesis. The host organization you choose should really have a lot to do with what public health problem and issues you're trying to solve. And I always try to say, you should also pick a host organization that you could possibly see yourself working with afterwards, because there are some times where students have worked at a host organization for the doctoral project and then ended up working at that host organization upon graduation. And the project enables a DrPH student to, and you can see right here, demonstrate mastery of public health knowledge and skills, translate research into practices or policy, helping the host organization meet their strategic goals. That's, you have to make sure you're getting something out of this in terms of your thesis, and the host organization is also getting their needs met as well, and developing the organization's abilities to improve public health. Now, the outputs, the deliverables from the projects, you will have a thesis, which I think there's a maximum amount, about 100 pages on this thesis. And then there is a reflection report on leadership and enabling change. And that's just your reflection of your personal growth throughout the program. You're starting from your time of coming into the program and what you have learned leaving the program. That is what, those are the 2 deliverables, written deliverables, that are coming out of the project. And then you also have an oral final examination, which is your defense of your project. I also listed just 4 of the projects that are that just were done this past year. Shireen did a project on changing Carnival during COVID and exploration of positive health and well-being. Bhargav Krishna, right down here, he did his project on air pollution and health in Delhi, India, working for the Center for Chronic Disease Control. Tawai Lin did his project at the Massachusetts Department of Health, working with on framework and implementation guide for partnerships addressing social determinants of health. And Anshu Shroff, she did her projects on a system thinking approach to risk reduction and mitigation for improving disaster management, and that was in Nashville, Tennessee. So our students do have an option to choose wherever they would like to do their doctoral projects. We're just here to help facilitate you getting to where you would like to go. Next slide, please. And I also wanted to include just a quick summary of some of the projects throughout the DrPH program that are listed here. I'll let you just peruse over these. Like I said, the first one up here is from Bhargav Krishna. That was his title of his project. And Shoes is right beneath his as well in Nashville, Tennessee. So you can see what they have done and where they were located and the host organizations that they have worked at. We also have this information listed in its entirety on the DrPH website. If you would like to take a look at that underneath Doctoral Project. Next slide, please. And I always wanted to include where our students, where they are now after they have graduated. The World Bank and World Health Organization are 2 big ones that students like to work at when they have a doctoral project, and also would like to work at afterwards. We do have students who worked at the World Bank and WHO on their projects and are still currently working at those host organizations. And then I've also included 2 others in here as well. This Hospitals Beyond Boundaries was a startup by one of our students, who is the CEO and founder of it. And he did his project while still building out the hospital. And this is exactly what he's doing right now and still being CEO of the hospital. We also have someone here. I wanted to include this as well because we get a lot of prospective students who ask, what if I wanted to go into academics with a DrPH degree? What could I do? This person down at the bottom worked at the Boston Children's Hospital while doing his project here, and this was his project title. He is currently now the Vice Minister for Education and Science in Kazakhstan. So that's just a little bit a sampling of what some students have done and what they have parlayed their DrPH degrees into. Next slide, please. And the final slide would be the eligibility requirements of our program. The program is a 3-year program. It has an optional to be extended to a 4th year. So you do have the option, but most students try to get their degree completed within 3 years. The requirements are that you have to have a master's or doctorate degree, at least 6 years of full-time public health and or public service experience. I've been asked a lot about this from prospective students, and I would like to add a little clarity to it. We do require 6 years of full-time work experience. That is true. But if at the time of applying, you have about 5.5 years of experience, that's fine, because if you were to get admitted into the program and the program begins the following year in July, you would have the 6 years of full-time work experience. I would always say if you have less than 5, you may want to wait another year just so that you're closer to the 6 years of full-time employment. And the application requirements are listed there below. The one that I would like to touch on are the test scores. They are optional again, test scores being GRE. They are optional again this year. You do not have to include them with your application. If you do have them, please submit them. That is fine. We can also evaluate the math requirement based on the transcripts that you also send. So there are a lot of other things that we can look at to evaluate prospective students in terms of their eligibility requirements for the program. I think that should conclude all of the requirements and the breakdown of what the DrPH program is. And I can hand it on over to Bruce in PhD and PHS. He will go over his program.
Appreciate it. So just to start out, everyone, welcome. First of all, I would like to thank Gary and his DrPH participants, Anton and Tatiana. Anton and I have new haircuts, so we're very excited to be here with you today. And also thanks to Charlie and Lizzie in Harvard Chan Admissions. My name is Bruce Villano. I'm the PHS Assistant Director of the program. I've been with the program since our first cohort entered in 2016. We are now entertaining applicants for our 7th cohort, which is hard to believe. Currently, we have 188 students, and we have graduated 84 new PhDs in the first 6 years of the program, which we're very excited and proud about. Later on in the presentation, I'll be joined by Daniel Arias, who is a PhD 2018 cohort in the global health and population field of study. And we'll also be joined by Colleen Reynolds, who is a 2020 cohort member in our epidemiology field of study. So if you could proceed, Charlie, that would be great. Just before we begin, we like to outline the questions that people most likely come at us with in terms of the application, so you're not thinking about them through the presentation. Our application deadline is a little bit different from the DrPH program because it's done through the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences admissions website at Harvard. The deadline is December 1st at 5 p.m. And GSAS manages all of the PhD programs for Harvard University. So that's why the strict deadline of 5 p.m. Eastern time without exceptions is adhered to. The website to apply to the program is via the link that's provided here. You can also go to the PHS PhD website, from there, there's a link to apply to the program. In addition to that, we request transcripts for every institution that you've attended, as well as 3 recommendations, which are required in order to apply to the program. Additionally, we have GRE requirement. For this year, it's encouraged but not required due to COVID-19. We understand that people may have some special considerations in terms of access to testing, or may not be comfortable submitting their GREs. So we don't require them this year, although they are encouraged and help to speak to students' ability to manage data and the statistical work that's done as part of the program. Some other PhD programs may not allow reaching out to faculty of interest. We do allow it, and you can access faculty websites and contact information via the Harvard Chan website, and specifically our fields of study links that we provide on our webpage. And then finally, one thing we do like to point out is that Harvard does have a 3-time application per lifetime rule as part of applying to PhD programs at the school. So you're only allowed to apply to any of the Harvard PhDs 3 times in your lifetime. So if you're considering applying to health policy, which is another PhD program, as well as population health sciences, and by some chance you didn't get into either, you'd only be able to apply 1 more time during your lifetime. So just keep that in mind as you're thinking through which is the right fit for you and where you might be interested in applying to our program. Charlie, if we could have the next slide. We are also very much committed to greater diversity in our program. So I'm just going to take a minute here and let you all read through what we've put out there as our mission statement around diversity, which is ever evolving given the times that we currently live in. So I'll just take a minute and let you read. Great, thank you, Charlie. And now why population health sciences and why enter into this work in one of our fields of study? I think in the past year, we've seen very good evidence that we can no longer work in silos with regard to our work in public health and in population health. And that while we do definitely need depth in the work that we're doing, we also need breadth across a number of different areas. So we work as a program to integrate multiple disciplinary perspectives. And we start our students out with a very broad range of experiences that will help inform the work that they then do in their future years of the program within one of our 5 fields of study. Our 5 fields are environmental health, epidemiology, global health and population, nutrition, and social and behavioral sciences, all of which are housed at the Harvard Chan School and are in departments here at the school. Each year, we accept 42 total students into the PhD in population health sciences, and those are broken down into each of the fields of study. So in environmental health, we admit 9, epidemiology 14, global health and population 6, nutrition 5, and social and behavioral sciences 8. On average, we have between 500 and 600 applications per year for the 42 slots that we admit into the program. That being said, last year was an outlier, and we had 800 plus applications. We don't know, based on last year, what we can expect coming in this year, but that is just to give you an idea of the competitiveness of the program, which people are always curious about. Charlie, if I could have the next slide. as I said in the last slide, the impetus for this was to create a depth and uniqueness of expertise within the 5 fields, but to also provide synergies and commonalities across all of these fields of study that would allow our students to work together, not only while they're in the program, but also to build a community of scholars that both during the program and even after they graduate, they could always reach out to. If you're an epidemiologist with a nutrition question, you have 5 immediate nutritionists at your disposal when you graduate the program from just your year. Across years, though, it could be as high as 30 or 40 nutritionists that you have access to coming out of the program, and really working across all of these fields for greater synergy in whatever work it is you choose to focus on and go on to do. Charlie? Just quickly here, we've laid out what our milestones are and our core requirements for the program. In year 1, you're really focused in on our overall coursework that is a core requirement for the program itself, as well as your field of study core requirements. In year 2, you would then go on to finish up your coursework and complete your qualifying examinations, which would then make you eligible to really dig in on your research alone and your data collection in year 3. And then finally in year 4, dissertation in defense. There is a possibility for a 5th year of the program should your advisor and field of study feel that it is warranted for you. And that again would be fully covered by the program with additional teaching fellowship requirements. And then also just to state that we are a fully funded PhD program. Students are provided with tuition and fees, student health insurance, and a monthly stipend, which is a little bit over $3,050 a month from the September that they enter the program, including summers, through the time that they defend in the 4th year of the program. Charlie? So why Harvard and why PHS? Charlie, you can click right through. I'll just provide all of these as background information for folks. We like to joke about this, but we're Harvard. In a lot of ways, we have access to some of the most cutting edge science that's going on. We have a diverse community of students. Students, although they are involved at one school in 5 distinct fields at the Harvard Chan School, you also have the community of the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences with PhDs in all other aspects of Harvard and the work that we do here. And then finally, synergies across Harvard, medical sciences, social sciences, quantitative methods, public policy, education, design, biological sciences. Students in PhD programs at Harvard also have access to take courses at MIT, Tufts, and Brown free of charge and without any huge enrollment differences in the way that they would enroll in any of the 13 schools at Harvard, which you would also have access to. And Charlie? And then finally, just a reminder to everyone that our deadline is through the Graduate School of Arts and Sciences at 5 p.m. on December 1st. And there are links here and information here for our PHS website. And you can click through to the application via our Apply Here button, or if you have questions that you'd like to follow up on from this presentation or anything you read, there's also a button for you to ask a question that we get back to and answer within a short time once you provide the question via the button. And that's our presentation for now. I'll turn it back over to Charlie.
Great. Thank you so much, Gary, and thank you so much, Bruce. So with that, we're going to pivot and meet and introduce our attendees to some of our current students and alumni. So if I could ask folks to turn on their cameras and we can say hello. Great. Awesome. Well, thank you so much to our current students and alums for joining us. Just so the room can get to know you a little bit more and some about your different experiences, why don't we go around, and if I could have folks just introduce themselves to their name, the program they either graduated from, or are currently enrolled in, and a little bit about your interests and work background too. So just a high-level overview. And Tariana, would you mind beginning?
Hi, everyone. Super happy to be here. I graduated in 2020, so a really historic time to be finishing one's degree. a time of public health crisis, and my background spans public health, communications, and business.
And Daniel, would you like to go next?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Arias. I use he, him pronouns, and I am doing a PhD in population health sciences, specifically on the global health and population concentration, focusing on health systems. My background is actually my undergraduate degrees in the history of science, medicine, and public health. And then for about 3 years, I worked in global health and international development nonprofit, doing sort of like technical analysis and consulting. And then I did my MPH at Hopkins, and now in my third year of my PhD.
Great, thank you, Daniel. And Colleen, would you like to go next?
Hi, I'm Colleen. I am a second year in the PHS EPI track. I study reproductive epidemiology, specifically social disparities in reproductive health outcomes like pregnancy loss, particularly those faced by sexual and gender minorities. My public health background before coming to graduate school is I had been working in adolescent sexual and reproductive health research. And I think those were all the questions.
And last but not least, Anton.
Hello, everyone. Thanks to Charlie for the invitation to the panel. So my name is Anton. I'm a third year DrPH student. And before coming to Harvard, I used to be a director of programs in a hospital here in Brooklyn, New York. I was managing a portfolio of different HIV and STI prevention programs. I currently work as a healthcare consultant for different organizations such as AIDS Healthcare Foundation, Fenway Health, and others, focused on issues around the strategy, patient retention, patient experience, and sexual and reproductive health. So it's a pleasure to be here with all of you.
Great, thank you very much. And I'll say to our attendees, if you do have questions for our student or alumni panelists, feel free to type those into the Q&A section, and I'll be sure to read those out. We do have a couple of questions that we'll start with, just to dive in and get the conversation started. And so oftentimes when students are considering the different doctoral programs, they kind of want to know the high level differences. In the admissions office, we say, the PhD tends to focus more on research and the DrPH tends to focus more on practice. But I'd like your perspectives on what are the different factors you considered and why did you ultimately determine that PhD or the DrPH was a better fit for you? And not to put you on the spot, Tariana, but would you like to kick us off with that question?
Thanks, Charlie. So my situation is unique in that I was previously a PhD student for 3 years, and I was doing research and being trained to be a researcher, scientist and work within academia. And I realized that was not the path for me. I wanted something that was more directly impactful to the community, where I could be outside of the walls of academia. And so that's why I pursued the DrPH program, because it is practice-based. It allows you to be able to enact change and to work across different systems. That being said, I think one of the best parts of my PhD experience was that I was studying storytelling interventions and how they help patients to change their health behaviors. And in that process, I wondered, could I apply these same storytelling strategies to help businesses and organizations convey what they do? And I actually started a media company while I was a PhD student. And then I left PhD studies and completely focused on communications and business within public health, and really, really niche. And so when I came to Harvard, I was looking for a program that would allow me to bring all of that.
And Daniel, would you like to go next?
Sure. So I sort of, like Tariana, have a background, which is that I came into my PhD program knowing that I was more interested in doing applied work than perhaps staying in academia. And so perhaps in this session, if I were to be a student in this session wondering, I'd be like, why did you then do the PhD as opposed to the DrPH? And a couple of things. One was that I knew that I wanted to do applied work, but I also wanted to have a very, very strong understanding of the underlying evidence, not just to understand sort of what is the state of evidence, but actually being able to evaluate rigorously, like, is this good evidence? And also, how do I parse ambiguous findings? And I think that sort of came from a place of understanding that I had a very, very shallow understanding of quantitative and qualitative methods. even after some training in my MPH program. And I didn't really feel like I could firmly say, judge the quality of the evidence. A couple of other factors were, the DrPH is a professional degree, and I think it's sort of well recognized across a lot of DrPH programs that funding is a challenge, since there are fewer grant opportunities available, and the ability to support students is sometimes limited, and a lot of DrPH programs are, I think, right now trying to figure out ways of improving that. As Bruce mentioned, the PhD and PHS is fully funded. That said, it's important to recognize that that comes with sort of the expectation of some labor that you are doing. In the case of Harvard, it was incredibly light. I think at the time, for when I entered the program, it was one course that you had to teach in all 4 years, just one course, and then anything that you taught above that, any research that you did beyond that, you would be compensated for in addition to your stipend. And that's not to say anything of us that are external consultancy positions that you could get outside of Harvard. So that was a huge important sort of factor. That said, I think that DrPH makes a lot of sense if you're thinking about it as an investment, and that you're going to sort of be able to do what you want to do with it, and make the money that would cover the cost of tuition if that's an issue. And then the last thing was also, I really enjoyed the interdisciplinary focus of PHS, that it was bringing together 5 different departments, but sharing common skills. So it allows for you to meet people who are doing work across sort of the institution, and it leads to some really interesting collaborations. So I started doing work on the US, even though my focus is global health, because of COVID, and started being interested in things like health economics and bioethics, and bringing some of my background in the history of science and medicine to some of the work that I've been doing as well.
Thank you, Daniel. And I'll pose the same question to Colleen as well. What factors did you consider in choosing your program?
I think the factors that influenced my decision are probably pretty similar to Daniel's. I plan to be an academic researcher, and so I wanted a program that would really train me to do really great research, and to be really specialized within epidemiology. One thing I do like about this program is the PHS first year course that all 45 students take in the PhD program. I think it's a really great methods course that sets the foundation for further epi study, or even for folks who are even more qualitative researchers. They're getting really rigorous quantitative training, which is a great part of our program. And then also funding was a really big factor for me. I wanted to go to a program that was going to be fully funded with tuition, fees, stipend. And it really varies a lot program to program. And I really appreciated that our work expectation at Harvard as PhD students is relatively minimal. I have friends at other PhD programs who are working closer to 20 or 30 hours a week, which can make it a bit more challenging to actually make progress on your academic goals in your dissertation. But yes, overall, I felt like the PhD program was a really great quantitative training experience. So that's a big part of why I chose it.
Great, thank you, Colleen. And then last but not least, Anton, what are the different factors you considered?
Sure. Well, first of all, since I was doing my MPH some years ago here in New York, I had heard of the DrPH program, and some of you might know that Julio Frank, who was the former dean of the School of Public Health and also our Minister of Health in Mexico, started the DrPH program, and I was extremely interested when I read about it, and was fascinated by it. It's focused on management, on leadership. And so I had been following a little bit about the program. And so I graduated from my MPH, and I landed a job in a place in which I didn't think I would get it, in a healthcare system. And so as I developed this portfolio of programs, I realized that I wanted to just develop myself more as a manager, as a leader, as my team began to grow more and more. And I learned different things based on my own instinct, or based on my own process with therapy, and just gaining self-awareness and gaining more knowledge about emotional intelligence, teams dynamics, and all of that. So I became fascinated by different organizational aspects related to this. And so I kept thinking that the DrPH program was going to be the best option, really, to delve a little bit more into that. And I was not wrong. I think one of the aspects that I've truly enjoyed the most since the beginning of the program has been the coaching component. And ever since I met my coach, I've been kind of knocking on her door all the time. And it's been such a fantastic piece for me to grow more as a professional. I'm developing my own consulting business right now, and it's proven to be one of the most useful things ever. And so I think the interdisciplinary nature of the program, the possibility to take classes across Harvard, and just feed it to your own interests and focus on leadership and management really was a piece that sold me. And I've taken great classes at the Kennedy School, at the School of Education. I think that opportunity to really turn the program into what you want according to your interests is fantastic, is something that just a few programs have. I also didn't want to do something online, and I compared it to another program that was online. Now, ironically, everything is online now, but the experience was equally good. It's continued to be really, really good. And just the possibility for me to work and develop my own practice, my own consulting business at the same time while I've been studying has been super rich, because I've been able to incorporate insights and knowledge and practice into practice. And so that has been really, really wonderful over the last 2 years now.
To follow up on Anton's excellent point, the way that I see the DrPH program at Harvard, it's like if an MPH and an MBA, right? So Master of Public Health, and then, Master's in Business Administration had a baby that was at the doctoral level, it would be the DrPH. Specifically, the one at Harvard is so flexible and you can personalize it. And because it's focused on innovation, leadership, management, communications, you can build it into whatever type of path you want. And in my cohort, there were 18 people. No one student was like any other. Everyone was super different, was super varied and interesting and accomplished. And we were all in our own lanes. And I think that type of cohort experience where you can learn from people that are in completely different worlds, completely different fields, doing different things, and also shows us all the ways in which we can be changed. If I can address some of the questions in the chat, there was some specifically to entrepreneurship. I think that because the program is so flexible, courses across all the Harvard campuses as well as MIT, you can personalize it. If you want to create your own business, you can do that. For me, from my doctorate, I focused on creating my own venture, my second venture, and really pursuing what that looked like. And I used immersive experiences within the program to be able to do that. I don't know if you guys can hear like thunderstorms. My internet connection. So there is immense opportunity for you to build whatever future you want through our program, and the focus of it interdisciplinary and also having executive coaching and then these applied experiences. The world's possibilities is endless. You just have to come up with a vision. And
thank you, Tariana. And I think some of the conversations we're delving into lends itself well to the next question I have. So, when students are learning about the program, certainly they approach it from the perspective of the curriculum. What are the skills and competencies they're going to gain from any particular track? But a lot of times in admissions, we get asked, how do the jobs differ? And it sounds like folks can do a lot of different types of things, but I'll just pose this to the group. Anyone feel free to jump in. What are some of the high level differences of where someone might end up working depending on whether they pursue the DrPH versus the PhD?
I mean, something important to say is that, the program that you do is not going to determine what you do. I mean, your career, you make it yourself. So first of all, I mean, you can do a PhD and then you end up working in a different, in an environment of practice or implementation. Like that happens all the time. And so one of my best friends here in New York, who is retired from the United Nations Fund of Population, did a PhD in evaluation. then she ended up being an executive director at the UN. I mean, you know, your career, you do it yourself. And so first of all, you know, I think that has to be clear. But second, I think what I keep hearing from people who are doing PhDs, you know, and not only at Harvard, different schools, I mean, definitely the primary interest of going into academia and research, you know, again, that is not the case all the time. And, you know, again, your career, you make it yourself, and you might do the PhD and end up, you know, doing something on related to research, or, you know, that happens all the time. But I keep hearing that that interest is consistent across the board. And so for me, although I do research as part of the work that I do, and I'm helping organizations gain really good insights, for instance, about their customers, about their patients, or about themselves, both technically, organizationally. And so I do some qualitative, some quantitative work for them, but it's for me, it's a tool to achieve an outcome for them and to get to the point in which they want to get, to drive change. And so you need a set of tools, qual, quant, and you combine that to give them the outcome that you want. So I incorporate research, but my career, I didn't think that I want to turn it into an academic or entirely research-based career. But again, you know, I've also heard stories of DrPH folks who, you know, go into academia or end up doing research. I mean, you know, the program will not define you.
I have a counterpoint, actually. I say I absolutely agree with Anton that the program doesn't define you, but I think it's important to be candid that, like, this is a significant amount of time, and I don't just mean that in terms of, like, you know, your energy. I mean, like, it is potentially 4 years of an opportunity cost. Like, you could be doing other things in terms of either of these programs or a totally different thing you could be working. And so, like, taking time to do these programs does mean that you are going to, I think, close some doors in the hope of opening others. And so, like, while I don't think that necessarily the program will define what it is that you do, it's not prescriptive, I think it is important to recognize that, like, the decision to do one of these programs is going to change what maybe trajectories you're going to be going on. And while, for example, the doors of academia aren't close to you to DrPH, I think it's important to recognize that that is not the emphasis of the DrPH program. The DrPH program isn't trying to place you into an academic position. It's very happy if you get one, but that's not really what the structure of it is. In the same way, the PhD program isn't trying to place you outside of academia. They're trying to train you to be, you know, a professor or researcher. I think it's great that people do opposite things. I'm hoping to do one of those things myself. But, you know, I think it's good to try to, you know, think about sort of what are the opportunity costs in making these decisions, what things won't you get as much exposure of if you do one track versus the other.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. So another question that we get a lot in the admissions office is people who say, I'm interested in both research and practice, and they're exploring both programs, both seem like they can be a good fit. And so I'll direct this question to our DrPH folks, but can someone do the DrPH and still engage with research? And if so, what types of opportunities might be available to them?
Because of the flexibility of the DrPH program, you can take electives that, you know, allow you to concentrate in something or have a sort of like a minor in something else. So if you wanted to use some of your electives to do research work, you can totally do that. If you want to have electives where you can take entrepreneurship courses or communications courses. For me, I did maternal and child health as well as child protection. So I did get exposure to research in terms of the children's world, and then and also, you know, mothers and birthing people. And then I translated some of that into a short film that was talking about maternal mortality, particularly with Black women, and also a positive spin in terms of strength and beauty and resilience, and not just having negative narratives that often come from data. And so there are so many possibilities in which you could pursue a research path and then make it creative or anything else you want to do within the curriculum. It's very, very flexible.
And for me, I think just saying that my focus was what are the tools that I need related to qual and quant research that I can use for my work in terms of practice, in terms of consulting, in terms of implementation. And so I don't think, what I wanted to get is just the tools to do the work that I wanted to do. And so not specifically to conduct research or go into academia, but I think I got what I needed from the program. And as Tariana said, again, you personalize it and then, you just get what you want out of it. So I think that clarity is important to obtain what you want.
Great, thank you to you both. And I have a question, more of a technical application question that I'll direct towards Gary, if he doesn't mind. Someone wants to know if the 3 times application per lifetime applies to the DrPH program as it does to the PhD program.
I feel like that's one question that I end up forwarding to admissions. to be very honest, I normally, and that's a question that I could have sworn I heard maybe last week through my inbox, and then I forwarded that to admissions.
Sure. Well, I can jump in on that one, Gary.
Go ahead.
Yeah, absolutely. So high level difference is that the DrPH program goes through the SOFIS Common Application System, which is a system used by many different schools and programs of public health. So as you are exploring different opportunities at different schools, it's always important to check whether their program goes through SOFIS or if it goes through their respective graduate school, because some schools do have their PhDs go through SOFIS. So really important to double check that. As it relates to the SOFIS application, though, we do not have a lifetime limit on applying. So you could choose to apply to the DrPH program more than 3 times. However, I would say that if you are in a situation like that, definitely reach out to talk to us, to talk about kind of your motivations, how we can strengthen an application, because we want to make sure that you have the tools you need to be successful and a competitive applicant when applying to the school. So that's a great question, but it is different than the PhD. And now I have a question I'll direct towards our PhD students. And oftentimes students will get in touch with our respective offices and ask about the importance of reaching out to faculty, whether prior to applying, during the application process. And I was hoping you could speak to your experiences, or even anecdotally what maybe friends of yours did, just to give our attendees some perspective on that side of things. And I don't know, Colleen, if you'd like to go first.
Yeah. So I think in other PhD programs, it can be really important to reach out to faculty because your funding comes from your PI. And so you have to have someone who wants to take you on as a research assistant to get any kind of pay. So it's less critical here because we have this central funding source. That being said, I did have a pre-existing relationship with my advisor. I don't think it can hurt. But I also know some people who got here and took the first 1.5 years to really figure out who they wanted to work with and who would go on to be on their dissertation committee.
That actually, what Colleen just described is very closely to what my experience was. I came in, didn't have an existing relationship with any of the faculty members, spent my first year working with a whole number of people in our department and decided, who that I liked working with, whose research I found interesting, and then built my committee from there. I think that is more common among people who are applying from outside of the MPH or MSPH program or SM program in the department. And there isn't a requirement, for example, that you connect with faculty. I would say understanding like whether the faculty that you would want to work with and the work that they're doing are actually in your department is super important. Otherwise, you might be applying to the wrong place. That has happened to me. It's happened to other people, and they realize like, wait, all the people that I actually want to work with are in a different department. I should have applied to that program. And so better to understand that fully before you apply.
Thank you. And I have a question actually that I'll direct towards Bruce, if he doesn't mind. And so, various programs have requirements or recommendations regarding how much work experience someone must or should have prior to applying to the program. And I'm wondering if someone were to ask you how much work experience in terms of years they would need prior to applying to the PhD program in population health sciences, how would you respond to that question?
So I would say based on past cohorts, we typically see, if I were to break it into a percentage, we typically see about 5% of our students come directly from a bachelor's degree. We see about 65% come directly from a master's program, and about 25%, I'd say, or 30% rather, come from prior work experiences out in the field, some with a master's, some without a master's. So it runs the gamut. The majority of our students come in with a master's and coming directly from a master's program. That being said, of the 42 we accept every year, on average, we take about 12 directly from Harvard Chan. And the other students come from the outside world or have been to Harvard Chan and gone on to outside experience and then come back to Harvard. So it really does vary. And likewise, the age of our student body varies, anywhere from, 23 years old up into the early 50s.
I don't know if any of our current student or alumni panelists want to speak to their pre-doctoral training. Did you work? Did you not work? Did you find it helpful? Is there something you wish you would have done that you know now?
I think the work experience is really important for the DrPH program to make the most out of it, because you do go and think about different instances in your life, personal, professional experiences, and the more experiences you've had, I think the better, particularly if I think, for instance, of the classes around team dynamics and enabling change and all the coaching process. The more experiences you have, the better to delve into them. And that's really the best way to learn. And as you create more experiences, then you're able to incorporate some of those insights that you've gained in your own leadership development process. And so it's kind of like this constant feedback loop. And so that's why coaching has been tremendously important for me across the program.
I agree with Anton. Having experience is definitely important. And the DrPH program at Harvard specifically also allows for you to gain new skills and new experiences through the field immersions, which are these applied opportunities that you get to collaborate with colleagues and also try out different career paths. So if you've done something for 5+ years and now you want to do something else, you can take advantage of the winter or the summer immersion or your doctoral project to explore something new. And it's okay to experiment. And I think I love that about our program, is that there's no expectation that you have to pursue a certain path or be a certain way. So if you want to take the path of, I'm here to explore, at least that was my approach to it. I want to be in a sandbox and I want to learn new skills. I want to meet new people. I want to be challenged. I want to grow. And I don't know where I'm going, but I know that I will be different and better as a result of this journey. If that appeals to you, then there's something, about this program for you.
I would add that I think work experience can also be really helpful, even in the PhD program. It can inform the kind of researcher you want to be, what you want to study, the skill sets that you think are really important to develop during your doctoral program. So definitely, even though it's not required, I think it's still very valuable.
Yeah, I sort of I think I would agree with everyone. And so sort of the core thing I think about going into any of these programs is knowing what you want to get out of them. If you want to get the opportunity to explore new things, if you want to develop a very particular skill set, you want to work with a very specific person, having those goals in mind. And then also figuring out what happens if that doesn't work out? What happens if that person leaves? What happens if my interests change? What happens if, I identify an opportunity really early on and that's what I want to stick with? And figuring out what is the give and take of your program. For the PhD, the whole point of it is to sort of develop your interests and network and receive mentorship and work collaboratively with people and develop ideas over time and sort of iteratively craft a research agenda and sort of make a sort of reputation for yourself as a person with expertise in something. And you get to decide what that is and sort of what methods you use. And how that research helps people.
Great, thank you, everyone. I think Daniel's points hit the nail on the head for my next question. And I recognize we have just about 3 to 4 minutes left of our session. Time flies. But as students are looking at different programs, obviously they're considering a lot of different things, you know, institution, location, curriculum, faculty. So what, you know, final piece of advice would you give a prospective student who's navigating all these different considerations and elements as they approach applying to doctoral programs at different schools? And Tariana, maybe we can start with you.
Sorry, can you repeat the question because my internet is spotty?
Yeah, no worries. So just with all the different considerations people have exploring different programs, what's a final piece of advice you would give someone as they're navigating this process?
There are so many different types of programs, and the DrPH and PhD, as I've shared today, are very, very different. There are some points of connection, but there are fundamental differences. And so take this opportunity to really ask yourself, what is the type of that I want for myself? What is the type of career path, the type of skill, the type of environment that I want to be in? And look for a place that you can have a home, right? That you can have an intellectual home, that you can have a collaboration home, a growth home. And I hope that whether it's the PhD program at Harvard or the DrPH program, that you find us to be a home.
And Colleen, would you like to go next? Any pieces of advice?
Yeah, I personally prioritize two things when looking for a PhD program. I wanted to find a community of scholars that shared my interests and shared my values, who I could work with during my doctoral program and hopefully eventually become their peer and their collaborator. And I've really found that here at Harvard. And I also wanted a program that was going to give me the explicit skill set I wanted. So I'm really interested in causal inference and epidemiology, and that's the Harvard Epi thing. So just do some research and reflecting on what it is you value and whether or not the program you're applying to is going to meet those needs and those values.
Thank you. And Anton?
So I think I support what others have said. And in terms of the clarity, that sense of self-awareness is important because the programs are different. And so, you know, knowing what you want is important. Talking with as many people as possible, I think that's always a good thing to do. And so if you're considering programs across multiple schools, do reach out to folks, and you will learn so much from people's reactions, the way they will talk with you, their ideas, potential for collaborations, et cetera, et cetera. And then you will begin to see, well, you know, it seems that in this university or in this place, you know, there are some good opportunities for this or for that. And so definitely reach out. And in the end, you know, these programs, you kind of make them yourself with that clarity on what you want. The DrPH program, I think, is pretty clear in terms of how you can model it to your own interest. And so, you know, spend some time talking with people, think it through, you know, get some feedback from peers, from colleagues. That's always super helpful. For me, it was a really good thing to talk with faculty from the DrPH program, and just, you know, their attitude, the way, you know, they welcomed my interests, and we explored them together. That was really nice, and that made the difference if I think of other people that I talk to in other schools. So spend some time doing that.
Thank you, Antoine. And then Daniel, any parting pieces of advice for the group?
Sure. I would say be skeptical, ask questions, and look for data. I think that you're in a position where you get to find information before you make a really major life decision, and you should exploit that to the best of your abilities. You should ask programs, how can, you know, students in this program afford the cost of living in the city? And that goes for PhD programs that are fully funded as well. The list of recent graduates and their positions doesn't mean that those positions were easy for them to get to. They could be the exceptions rather than the rules. It's important to find out what the trajectories were like. Did they feel their degree helped them? Did it hinder them? Did they get something that was totally separate from their degree that was valuable for their employer's decisions? When programs talk about diversity, push them on that. What have they done? How did they respond to COVID? How did they respond to the events of last summer? And then, you know, I think also an important part, and this came up in our questions, was like, what can you do with the different degrees? It's really important to partition out what can you do versus what are you encouraged and rewarded for doing by your program, by its structure? What are some of the logistical challenges to doing the things that you really want to do? And then lastly, be skeptical about doing these degrees. I think for most people, there's a belief that you need a doctoral degree in order to do like really awesome things and advanced things. I think for the vast majority of cases, that's not true. And most of us would, most people would probably be better off just doing work and doing the things that they actually want to do and having more time. And so I think that that's a good thing to do. And then sort of if you decide to do a doctoral program, amazing, great job. But you get this chance to really question that.
Absolutely. Thank you so much to everyone.